Good morning, folks. It's Thursday, January 24, 2019, a little bit before 9 a.m. Linda's getting her hair done, and she should be down here within 20 minutes or so. So one of the things that I did is I took a piece of cherry that I had worked on, and the cherry goes from here to here. But this is the farmer cherry, so it's, not straight edged. And I put it on this jig that I have, which is these clamps and then a big board. And then I have these boards here as sort of shims. Anyways, you can see how much this cherry board hangs over this. And so what this does is I run this end of that whiteboard along the fence, and I have the cherry board lined up so that against this saw blade so that it'll take and straight edge it. And so what you see here is the straight edged board. You can see a little burn mark from my saw, but that is a straight edge. I'm going to be using this board as trim around my open staircase. But before I do that, what I'll do is I'll take this board and on edge, run it through the jointer to get this nice and clean and flat. And then I'll cut with this end here that's now straight. I'll lean it against that, set my mark to 4 inches on my gauge here, and run this board through, because what I want is I want 4 inches of that board. And I'll show you where it goes. That's the trim boards that will be around the open staircase. And so you see John put in these newel posts the other day. He put in 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that 4-inch board will go on this side of the newel post. That's 2-inch space from here to the edge of the plywood, and then it'll be another 2 inches over the top, 1/2 of an inch for drywall, and then I'll have a 3/4 inch piece of trim up against the drywall and this board that I'm going to put down, and then about 3/4 inch overhang. So that's what I'm doing, but they have to be, I think it's 73 inches from here to there. So before I cut that board into 4-inch slices, I'll cut off the end and use that for something else. But I'll have to come along with that board all along here, which is about 12.5 feet. And then I'll have to come with one here in front of this and in front of that. And so what I'll do is actually build out a little support underneath it, although nobody will ever be stepping on that because I'll have the vertical posts that go on a staircase, and then I'll come back into that. So I'll have to cut up a couple of those boards to be able to make all of these runs. I probably, because I don't want to have a seam in the middle, so I'll have to cut up 1, 2, 3, 4 boards. So, I had talked about the newels. This is solid cherry. This one is 4 pieces. So that's in there real tight. And John tied it into an LVL down below. I'll put a 1/2 a piece over here, and here's that 1/2 piece. there'll be a piece of cherry that goes on underneath it, and then here, and then the railing will tie in from this newel over to this half piece. So I'll work on this stuff. Linda's going to be watching grandchild on Friday, and then Saturday she goes to one of the basketball games. Sunday she leaves for her mother, and she's there Sunday, Monday, and then comes back Tuesday afternoon. So hopefully I can have this done, because I need to have this done for when we do our hardwood flooring. It'll tie right into that. Here's a concept I've been playing with for the cap on the newel post. I'll probably end up cutting these down a bit once we get our railings in. But all I did there is I took about a 6x6 block of 2-inch cherry, ran it through the table saw on an angle all the way around to give it a little bit of, dimension, and then I just ran a groove all the way around it on the table saw as well. It's maybe 3/8 of an inch. So I'll do that for these 4 and that half one. So here's our floor. I think we have about 127 inches of wide, and then we have 37 feet long. So some of the things that we're dealing with here is we have floor vents, and I talked to you about the floor registers that I'm making. So that's the frame that I made for the floor register. There's gaps, but that's what putty is for. Over here, remember I laid my first row here, and so what I ended up doing here is making a 3-sided floor register form, because that little notch and that little notch slip in to the groove on this board, and then I'll just run a little board along here that'll be like that. And then I'll have to lay boards in between and cut some around this, but I'll maybe work on that as well when Linda's not here, because I can do that myself. We ran into some problems yesterday. We had sort of a hissy fit, because when you measured from there over to here, it wasn't the same distance all the way down. So what we had to do, because you end up with some bowing, like, for instance, there's a little seam, and it's because this board is a little wider than this one, and you get that. So what we had to do is right about here on this row, we had to try to straighten it out. Now, I will see this, but you can see here, this board is wider than it is on this end. And, it's maybe 1/4 of an inch, and so I had to trim it down gradually to get that to happen. Here, again, we had a board that was quite a bit narrower than the other one. And here we have a gap. We're going to just fill that with putty. But we've got a lot of putty work to do on this. But I feel now that we have it pretty well straight, and so we'll now have some nice tight joints. We're being more careful about making sure that this board is the same width as the one next to it. We have some tape here. This will be where we put some floor outlets, and when we get into this area with our boards, what we'll do is we'll tape that area. This should be about in the center of a truss, and then we'll make sure that we don't nail where that tape is, and then we can just drill straight through the floor and not hit nails. We have 3 of them. I see 1, 2, not sure over here. Anyways, that's what we've got right now. So that's a little bit about trim work and hardwood floors. It's January 24, 2019. Thanks for following our progress.